Hello Wolfpack, welcome back to another Bitcoin analysis. We're here with the weekly candle closing fresh at around just a terrible weekly candle close at around, let's see, 42k here, 42.1k, just above 42k. And the reason why that's interesting is because yesterday in the video I made last night or yesterday morning, depending on where you are, we listed out the fact that this was an evening star candlestick formation, which is a very bearish candlestick formation, which generally leads to a continued downwards trend upwards of 70% of the time, right? So this is a bearish formation. Not only was it an evening star formation, we also managed to lose the 50-week SMA, which, as you guys would know, is an incredibly important indicator on Bitcoin. And I'll just show you a chart that kind of outlines why that is. So historically, the red line is the 50-week and the 200 is the green line, by the way. Historically, when we lose the red line, the 50-week SMA, we generally end up at the 200-week SMA, right? So the 200-week SMA and the 50-week SMA work in conjunction. As analysts, we need to be using these together on Bitcoin in the weekly chart. They work together. So we lose the 50-week, we end up at the 200, we find support on the 200, we break above the 50-week. More often than not, that leads to a bull market. So why is it interesting what's happened on Bitcoin? Well, it's pretty interesting because what we've actually done, as you guys can see, just like in 2018, is we've lost the 50-week, we've came back up, essentially rejected off of it, and in 2018 we headed downwards further. Right now we broke below, came back up, essentially rejected off of it, or broke above, just slightly unable to hold. Same thing as rejection. And then the assumption is that we're going to be going downwards towards the 200-week SMA at 24k, right? That is my opinion on Bitcoin. That's what I think is going to happen. I don't see any reason why that will not happen. And if we're looking at the weekly chart even further, we bring up something like the MACD. You know, I bring this up quite often, just like a lot of the things in my videos, really. I mean, the MACD in 2018 acted in a very similar fashion, right? We saw a bullish MACD cross. It was immediately flattened out, and we've seen a bullish MACD cross, and it's getting flattened out right now. The histogram is showing a lighter green color, which represents the histogram failing to hold that bullish trend, right? The price in general failing to hold that bullish trend, and weakness just kind of overwhelming the market here on Bitcoin. And so if we jump into something like the 4-year cycle, what we can see, and this is just consolidating stuff we already know really, is that, well, you know, you can pause the video, read out the color-coded information in color-coded order, and understand that, well, according to the 4-year cycle theory, we are still within the 4-year cycle theory, and so that November top was valid to the day, and that the most likely bottom for Bitcoin, according to this theory, is 24k at around November to December, right? Although the time frame's a little bit iffy, we're not really sure of time frame. We can be sure 24k-ish is going to be where the bottom is on Bitcoin, according to the 4-year cycle theory, right? If we're looking at something like, for example, the 3-day chart on Bitcoin, this is where it starts to get interesting because it starts to give you an idea of how immediate this could happen, how you know, imminent the threat is for a crash here on Bitcoin, right? In 2018, as you know, we're copying the 2018 price action quite well. I'll do it again. I'll bring up the fractal from 2018. I know I bring it up quite a lot here, but essentially if we grab a fractal straight from 2018, bring it over to the current price action, and try to apply that, what we can see is that, well, try to apply this a bit better. We are in a very similar period of price action to what we saw in 2018. We're copying the 2018 bear market exactly. And so seeing as the price action is the same, we can expect the same result. That's how investing works. If you have the same leading up, you can expect the same end, okay? And we saw at the end here in 2018, a cross between the 50 on the 2-day and the 200 on the 3-day, 50 on the 3-day, 200 on the 3-day, which are these red and green lines. We crossed there. When these lines connected and touched each other, we saw a crash on Bitcoin about 50% in a matter of a couple months. Okay, these lines are converging in a very similar fashion. And when these lines do cross, which should be, if we're just taking a rough estimate here, just draw straight lines and just estimate where these lines will cross, they'll be crossing in around May. So starting in May, according to this analysis, according to this theory, we should be seeing a large crash on Bitcoin. May is next month, guys. And May lines up with a potential 50 basis point rise in the interest rates, right? Interest rates in the Federal Reserve in the USA are going to be rising around 50%. That could vary up, not 50%, sorry, 0.5%, so 50 basis points. That's the most likely scenario. You can see bond yields in the US are absolutely skyrocketing, which represents that this is what the market is demanding, right? It's already getting priced into the market. These are interest rate hikes, right? That doesn't mean it can be priced in fully, because ultimately you can't price in recession. You can't price in recession. It's not possible. But essentially, the prediction is there. 50 basis point hikes are expected. And eventually that's going to take its toll on the markets, right? consumer purchasing power is going to go down. That's going to lead to lower stock valuations because less people are spending money on consumer products, which is going to lead to a crash in the S&P 500, which is going to lead to a crash in Bitcoin, right? If the current trend is sustained, that is what is going to happen. And a 50 basis point hike is something we haven't seen in 20 years, okay? And they're considering doing multiple of them this year. So, that May crash I just talked about on Bitcoin, it's not really confirmed. It's just speculation. I wouldn't even say that's my prediction, but I would say you should be being aware of it, right? Keep it in your mind. It could very much happen. It would be logical to happen if it did happen, okay? And we could be, very much be thrown into a recession here, but we talked about that quite a bit already in previous videos. It is not a good macro environment to be bullish on something like Bitcoin, which is a very high-risk asset. Very high-risk assets sell off in the face of economic crisis, right? And what we're seeing on Bitcoin ultimately in the daily chart is nothing special. We're still within the ascending channel formation, which is obviously a bearish formation, breaks for downside around 70% of the time. We're still seeing descending volume in the ascending wedge formation. We're seeing an upwards trend with low volume, and that is obviously very bearish as well. Nothing really too compelling on the RSI or MACD, and we can see we're lodged right now between a massive amount of support resistance coming from the bull market support band, support coming from the 150-day SMAs, right? And so ultimately, if we're looking at the shorter term on Bitcoin, and we look at something like the 4-hourly chart, we can see that doesn't look too bad on the 4-hourly chart, okay? We've actually crashed down quite a bit on Bitcoin. And now what we're seeing really is a descending channel formation with a positive divergence of a positive divergence on the stochastic RSI, a positive hidden divergence on the stochastic RSI, and we're also seeing as well a bullish divergence on the RSI, the regular RSI. And then adding on to that as well, we're also seeing relatively, not super low volume, but relatively low volume in the descending channel, with small descending channel formation here. Look, it wouldn't surprise me at all if we hold this 42k support in the short term, we break above the channel and we end up doing something, like this and see a retest of, say, 46k, see a retest of the top of this red resistance box, or even just a retest of something smaller like 44k, right? And see a retest of the bottom of the resistance box. However, I'm not betting on anything. I'm not going to be trading right now Bitcoin. I will trade altcoins. I'll take advantage of that swing on altcoins, but ultimately you should be waiting for the break, right? Because, who knows? We could just break to the downside and go straight to the bottom of a channel, right? It's not too far away. But the point is, for short term's a little bit uneasy right now, a little bit uncertain. If you see a break to the upside, don't FOMO into the market. It's quite expected after a big retrace. But ultimately, yeah, it's still downwards trending. If we look at something like Ethereum, what we can see on Ethereum is this triangle breakout, came up, rejected off 3,600, which is a major resistance, holding the top of the triangle for support currently. Do I think it will hold? Not really too sure. I don't think it will, though, because I think the trend of direction of Bitcoin is downwards, and obviously if Bitcoin moves downwards, there's very little chance Ethereum's going to stabilize. So yeah, I think this will break down, but again, speaking of short term, like we just looked at on Bitcoin here on the 4-hourly chart, short term's a little bit debatable. I'm not really too sure what's going to happen in the short term. I'd probably lean towards a swing to the upside in the short term, to be honest with you. Even if it's just 44.5k or 44k, we could be seeing that. And if we do see a swing up to 44.5k, that would be a bottom side rejection before an even bigger crash, right? We'd see something like that. Same thing with 46k, it would be a bottom side rejection before an even bigger crash, right? So even if we move upwards, we're still in a bad position here on Bitcoin. And what we'd actually need to be seeing, right, for an actual reversal here on Bitcoin, an actual trend reversal, is a break above the 200-day SMA. And if you wanted to be a little bit less conservative, you could say progress, at least progress, would be a break above, say, 46k. That would be progress, but that's a far way off, and we could see a retest of those regions, but just be careful, unless we break it, that breaking it's all that matters. Retesting is all fun and games, but at the same time, if we retest it from a downside like we did here, like we did here, like we did here, and like we did here, all of those times it led to a crash, it led to a crash, it led to a crash, right? So retesting from a downside is not really all fun and games, right? We need to actually break above, right? So at this point, really not too much to be bullish about at all. And there is, a speculative prediction to be made about the short term in terms of bullishness, but I'd be waiting for a channel break at the very least before I enter any scalp trades. Shorter term, a little bit debatable. Longer term, undoubtedly bearish. There's really nothing bullish about the long term here on Bitcoin, and that's just what it is. So that's the Bitcoin video. I'm going to be doing a video tomorrow on the same topic on Bitcoin. Obviously, I'm going to cover Bitcoin dominance cover, altcoin season, get a little bit into the nitty gritty of the S&P 500 and start talking about some new charts that I've been looking at as well. I just wanted to release this update video just after the weekly candle close because I did a weekly candle close update last night, but it hadn't closed yet at this point, so I wanted to see how it closed before I did this video, and this is kind of consolidating what I said last night in this video that, well, it's not looking good. Short term, as I said, debatable, could see a swing upwards to anywhere from 44k to 46k, but, you know, in terms of, you know, week to week basis, this is a very bearish chart, and also just to bring attention to that, you know, the situation that's happening in May, right? I've deleted the chart here, but where we have those converging 50-day, the red line, and 200-day, the green line on the 3-day chart, right? Those converging lines, when they cross in May, could lead to a big crash. And that's only a month away, guys. So there's some big stuff coming up here for Bitcoin. We need to be looking at the charts on a daily basis. That's why I do these daily videos, to keep you updated. Before I sign off the video, go ahead and check out the Crypto Academy in the pinned comment below. There's an announcement group there that's going to be arriving shortly. Me and Mega Well Crypto have been working hard on that one, working relentlessly, hours per day, to bring you, you know, possibly the best learn to trade cryptocurrency course in the cryptocurrency space. And that's not an exaggeration. You know, we've been working really hard on that, and we've put some stuff in there that I don't see anyone else in the space putting in for a price that's, you know, way better in terms of content you're receiving than anyone else as well. And you know, just generally just a great stuff going on there. And, you know, when you want to see, if you want to see some extra information about that, go ahead and check that pinned comment. But for now, I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers. Thanks, guys.